All right, everybody. Let's kick this off. Why don't we? Well, welcome everybody to the No Pain Podcast. I'm going to turn things over to Mike here, and he's going to get things kicked off for us.
Hello, Calgary and others, fellow Canadians, but I guess mainly most of us are Calgarians. So,
Yeah.
Hi everybody, and I'd just like to introduce you to the Brody Cullen, and if he was a dinner bell, I'd bang him till everyone came. And then we have Carly
everybody.
here to my left, and she's so hot that when she explodes, volcanoes flee her. How's it going,
There
Carly?
you go.
Hello, that's very
That was
nice.
very inventive,
that.
Mike. That was very inventive
Thank you.
and creative. That was great.
So, we're going to be talking today about a pretty intense situation with Brody here, one of our master select installers with Certainteed. And basically he fell off the roof, and it was quite a intense experience for everybody. And just wanted to ask some questions. We're going to talk about that today and just kind of just have a conversation about it. So, Brody, what exactly happened?
Well, it was a frigid morning, December 5th, 2019. My memory of that morning is practically non-existent. I have memories from the night before, but I don't remember driving a site that morning. I don't have any memory of the event up until I think 6 days after when I came to in the hospital. But from what I'm told, it was just your average morning. You know, it was clear. It was a clear day. I knew that there wasn't a whole lot of snow on the roof. It was just rather frosty. But I went up onto the roof after setting everything up, and I proceeded to just kind of go through my rounds like I would have any other morning. I guess that morning complacency got the best of me because I'm just kind of trucking around, going through everything. And long story short, I stepped on a real icy patch on the roof that happened to be right near the eave end, no more than a couple feet from it. And, I hit that patch, and the next thing I knew, I woke up 6 days later in the hospital. So
Wow.
it was
Okay.
quick, yeah. And like I said, everything in between, that morning and the next, or 6 days later, was just reiterated to me from other people because I was in and out of consciousness throughout that time period, but I really didn't retain much. So it was rough. It was weird.
I see. So what exactly do you remember going up to that? So like what would say is your last memory before the incident?
The last memory I have before the incident would be just the night before, sitting in the living room with Carly. Actually, I know we were just watching a movie or something like that. It was just a totally regular night.
Mm-hmm. We got pho.
What did we eat?
We ate pho.
We had pho.
Yeah.
That's rad. I definitely do remember pho now that you jog my memory, because we're talking just over a year ago, so I don't have crystal clear memories. But yeah, the last thing I remember is just being in the living room, in my place, in the very place we're sitting now, actually, when I used to live down here. But just hanging out on the couch the night before, just obviously just very happy with the situation I was in, hanging out with Carly, obviously, and just ready to start another day. It was a Wednesday, was it not? The day of the accident?
I think so.
I'm not sure what day it was, but I know that I got a phone call. Basically, it was like the first phone call I had, and I would say it's that that phone call that I guess anybody dreads, is that somebody's been hurt, and it could be pretty bad. The first thing I asked was like, how bad is it? And the guys were like, it's pretty darn bad. So that's That's interesting. So, like, what would you say is the first thing that you remember after the incident?
First thing I remember after the incident, well, the first thing I noticed actually was that I was restrained. I was obviously kind of fighting the entire experience right from the get-go. I just remember waking up and I realized that like I couldn't really move my arms. My wrists were in restraints, and I just remember trying to like kind of feel around, kind of come to terms with where I am, what was going on, and I really couldn't. I was basically immobile. I don't remember seeing anybody right off the bat. I think when I first came to, I was alone in the room, or Carly might have been in the bathroom.
You came to a couple times before that, but I guess your first memory.
Yeah, no, I did. I was told that throughout those, from the day of the accident until 6 days later, I was in and out talking with people, but I don't recall any of it. So
Talking is not it. Gibberish.
Not talking?
Gibberish.
Well, yeah. Well, I was doing what I could anyways, but I did have a few other people there with me throughout that time frame. Carly was there, a close friend of mine as well, Skylar. He was there for a lot of it. But I don't remember a lot of the interaction I had with anybody within those first 6 days. So first thing I remember, is waking up and just being totally restrained.
Well, you were restrained mainly because, I think it was my fault kind of because, in a way, because I was like telling him, because you kept ripping out your IVs. So I was
yikes.
like, you gotta, I was telling him, like, you guys gotta tie down both these arms. And that's why I think it's really important to have people that you care about in the hospital watching you, because, those are the people that really care about you. I know the nurses did a great job, but it's just sometimes you got to say something like, hey, this, I think he's ripped out his IV like 3 times now. Maybe we should tie down both arms, and so that's what I remember from it. So what exactly injuries did you sustain?
List of injuries. Well, you could say extensive, I suppose. Where do I start? Well, one of the first things I noticed was just the lack of movement with my right arm. I knew right away something was wrong there. Turns out I shattered my collarbone into 3 different pieces. My right collarbone. I had a lot of pain in my ribs.
So I just want to stop you there.
Yeah,
you
sure.
want to show like just a kind of a clip here of where your collarbone is?
Yeah,
over here,
I can bring up. I can totally bring up a photo of that, which obviously is not necessarily graphic, but we can show the X-ray. This is after the surgery, after the reconstructive surgery, we'll call it. If the photo wants to load up, there we go. Yeah, so this is a shot here of the steel plate they put in my collarbone to just reconstruct my shoulder, essentially. They put, I think, 7 different screws in it. None of which protruded like through the other side of the bone. I think it's hard to see in the photo, but they dug in pretty deep. But yeah, they used a titanium rod to reassemble the 3 pieces, and stitched it all up with, I think, 25 stitches, or staples rather, 25 staples. So yeah, that was obviously kind of a gnarly surgery to go through. I didn't really go through it. They put me under before that. But waking up and kind of just taking a look in the mirror, I didn't see it until a few days later when they took the bandages off. But I can show you another shot here, just of, I guess, when they unwrapped it. Show you the extent of the scarring, I guess you could call it. But you take a look here, I think 25 and 30. But we're still just on the first injury anyways.
Right.
Like I said, the extent of which were extreme, I guess.
How does it feel right now?
Well, since then, I can still just kind of, when I press around with my hand, I can still feel like it's frozen, like slightly. There's just like nerve damage all around the area.
Right.
And this is over a year later, but like I'm not experiencing pain. I don't really notice it until I start feeling around. But when I start to poke around at it, I can tell that there's definitely nerve damage, and I just kind of lost feeling in some areas, but
Right.
no pain.
That's good.
No pain roofing. TM.
Right.
Yeah, so that was a shot, just kind of obviously post-surgery, and I hadn't sustained such a gnarly scar until until after this surgery, so I guess I'm proud of it. You could say I show it off to people, I guess. I mean, nothing to be proud of, but hey.
I remember
can I
trying
say?
to talk you out of the surgery. I was hoping that, because sometimes surgeries go wrong, and I was worried about you. And but I mean, I guess the surgery was the right way to go because you got healed up pretty quick. So
I wouldn't have had a choice, though. I mean, yeah, with my collarbone being in like 3 separate pieces like that, I wouldn't have had
right.
an
Yeah.
opportunity to recover properly.
Right.
Otherwise, like, I mean, I would have had, I would have looked like a triceratops, kind of was like growing in my shoulder. It was pretty gnarly just looking at it. Before the surgery anyway, seeing myself in the mirror and just kind of realizing how messed up my shoulder really was.
Wow.
So,
yeah, man. I could
It was
imagine.
weird. Yeah, it was weird.
So what else did you sustain for
Yeah,
injuries?
so outside of my broken collarbone, I sustained, I think it was 2 fractured ribs in the front on my right side. Didn't really notice that as extensively as I thought I would have. I guess they were bruised, I could feel it, but like I didn't have any problems with moving, didn't have any issues mobility wise, I guess, in my torso. But yeah, so fractured a couple ribs in the front. And the next injury that actually caused me more problems in the long run than my collarbone did was actually I fractured a couple vertebrae in my spine as well. I can't remember which ones exactly, but there were 2.
I thought there was 4.
4? Which one? Which 4? Do you remember? Which 4?
I don't know. No, sorry.
Don't remember which ones?
No.
Yeah, I don't remember either. I guess that's better
It's been a while.
Yeah, I guess it's better to just kind of forget about it. But yeah, with the 2 vertebrae fractures, I just had a lot of back pain. Obviously, like it didn't really start to worry me as much until after I got out of the hospital and I was back home, and I realized how bad my mattress was. I was having just a lot of issues with that. So one of my first purchases, when I was discharged from the hospital, was like buying a new memory foam mattress, which really helped, obviously. So yeah, outside of the 2 vertebrae fractures, the fractured ribs, the broken collarbone, the next, I guess, biggest concern to doctors and everybody else was the damage that my skull had sustained. They had detected via MRI that I had 2 subdural hematomas in 2 different areas of my brain. For those who don't know what that quite means, there's like a film that covers your brain that kind of, I guess, just wraps your entire brain and keeps it intact. And I hit my head hard enough that it bruised 2 different areas of my brain, and those bruised areas started to bleed. And blood started to pool against the brain, but behind that dura matter. So essentially caused two blood pools in 2 different separate areas of my brain, the subdural hematoma. They were concerned, based on the size, that they might have to intervene surgically, i.e. shave my head, crack my skull open, and drain the blood manually. I don't quite know how long it took them to come to the conclusion or the decision to not intervene surgically. But I don't know, what do you remember from that conversation, Carly?
Your first week is when the doctor would come in every day and check on you, and just when you started getting your memory back and you were fine cognitively, they decided that you didn't need the surgery, probably within a week.
Based on like cognitive reaction to everything?
Just your memory seemed to be decent, and your mobility was fine. They can just tell that it's not something they had to operate on.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's good news, yeah. Because one of my biggest concerns was that they were going to shave my head. And back then my hair was down past my shoulders. And yeah, when I found out later that they had planned on potentially shaving my head, I was happy that they didn't. But yeah, they had determined after, the diagnosis, the way Carly had explained, that they wouldn't have to intervene surgically.
Thank
and they
God.
let it kind of mellow out. But outside of the subdural hematomas, there were the skull fractures on their own. I can't remember the exact placement of some of them, but there were multiple sites around. I think it was like the right portion of my skull that was the most, severely impacted. But what I do know is there was one that ran from like around my temple, kind of down the side of my jawline to like the bottom of my chin, just like a hairline fracture along the side there. But yeah, luckily, outside of the hairline fractures, there were no other real serious complications, I guess. I mean, the hematomas kind of subsided on their own, luckily. It didn't really cause any further
super
issues,
lucky,
so, yeah.
super lucky. And so, from what I understand, when you fell, I think you hit the eaves trough, and then you spun down, and then you hit your elbow, or not your elbow, sorry, your shoulder. I think was the first point of contact, or your collarbone on a shed, which we could say the shed saved your life. Would you say that?
Definitely. Maybe not my life. I mean, it would have depended, or it would have, how I landed would have had a huge role in that. But yeah, I slipped off, caught the gutter on the way down, ripped that apart, and then there was just like a utility shed, the type that you'd buy from Home Depot. That's just a big plastic type shed. And I landed on the corner of it, which obviously stopped about 8 feet of my fall. Obviously caved in a corner of that shed, but I mean, yeah, if that shed hadn't have been there, and if I just would have, landed flat on the concrete, I mean, it's obvious that I would have sustained more drastic injuries. I mean, just outside of the collarbone break and, the skull fractures, that could have been, I mean, I don't like to not fantasize, but, it could have been a lot worse than it was.
Yeah,
obviously.
I can understand why you don't want to think about that portion of it, because I mean, yeah, it would have been really brutal. So, so when it came down to it, what would you say was like, what could you say to people to keep themselves safe on a roof going forward? Like, say maybe a homeowner wants to go on a roof. What would you say he could learn from your mistakes, and what would you recommend him do to kind of make sure something like that doesn't happen to a homeowner or somebody else?
Well, when I fell off the roof, or that morning, we had already actually ripped the majority of the roof, and it was all prepped up with our with the underlayment. We were using Certainty Roof Runner at the time. It has fair grip of its own, but obviously in the frosty conditions, not much can get a grip on that kind of surface. So in the, situation, or in the event the homeowner was going to go do some sort of roof inspection in colder conditions, proper footwear would be obviously the very first and foremost. I was the morning of the accident, wearing worn down runners with practically no grip on them, which obviously I kick myself for wearing. But with the homeowner situation, there are a lot of different kind of grip,
Right.
kind of things you can slip over your own shoes to provide grip. Spikes, we call them corkers, is one brand that we use, but you would obviously damage the shingles using something extreme like that. But in the event that
just we'll back you up. So what exactly are corkers?
Corkers are essentially just this rubber boot that you fit over top of your shoe. They have interchangeable spikes all along the bottom of them with different depths. But they're essentially these buckle on shoe mounts, essentially, for just providing extreme grip in extremely slippery conditions. And we're using them primarily when we're first starting a job in the winter, because the shingles that we're tearing off obviously can sustain more damage. But yeah, corkers are just like contractor friendly. I guess a more extreme end of slip resistant kind of material you'd use on your shoes. We use them regularly, and they're obviously very, very helpful in rough conditions. So
I see. Well, I mean, I think the elephant in the room is definitely, you got to have a rope on anytime you're on the roof. I mean, the OHS standards aside, it's really comes down to your life And I mean, just because it's a legality doesn't mean you should disregard your safety. I mean, either or. It's about your safety, and we got to prioritize safety for sure. So I mean, here's the thing I know about ropes is that it's not just based on ropes. You got to have your rope up. It's obviously going to prevent you from hitting the ground, but you also got to take measures, like you say, wearing the corkers to make sure that you don't hit. So you don't slide off the roof to begin with. So I personally would say to homeowners is definitely know how to, operate your fall arrest gear. You can take online courses. You can read up on everything and find out how to get that done. So so besides that, who are you with when everything happened there?
First, I should point out that's obviously the first and foremost defense against that kind of accident is wearing a rope. And that morning, as I said beforehand, complacency got the best of me. You feel comfortable to the point where you're not wearing it all the time. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't wearing it when I should have been. So obviously wearing a rope, first and foremost, biggest thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I can't remember exactly who I was with that morning. I know Bo and Nolan, my coworkers, were there with me. I can't remember if Brandon, another coworker, was there with us. But Bo and Nolan, I do remember very clearly since I've been working with them for so long. They were present, and I guess, I was up on the roof before they were, but they came up not long after myself, and they took a look around on the roof and realized that I wasn't on the roof anymore. Mm. And from what I know, it was Bo who headed back down and walked around the property and eventually found me standing, surprisingly, leaning up against a gas meter between the two houses. I think Bo was the first one that found me after the accident. But,
I think he found you pretty quick too. He had just had some intuition, and he was like, something just didn't seem right, and then he looked over and he knew that you didn't go down the ladder because he would have saw you. But Bo was paying pretty good attention that day, and I think that him finding you quickly was definitely a godsend in itself.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I guess, yeah. There's nowhere for me to hide up there. There's nowhere for me to hide. And when he realized that I wasn't there, there's only one other place it could be.
Oh, that's the scariest thing to happen. And that's really unfortunate. So like you're saying, it was I think it was in the wintertime when this happened. And would you say, was it in December?
December 5th was the day of the accident. 5th. Yeah.
That's crazy. That's a day after my birthday. It's like,
happy birthday.
Wow. Yeah, that could have been crazy. And where exactly was it? Do you remember in the city where it was?
Yeah, that was up in I think it was just borderline southwest, northwest, like right on that line. Mm-hmm. But I think it was up in West Point.
I think you're right.
West Point Court, I think, was the area. If you guys know Schooner's Pub, it's just kind of off Banff Old Coach Road, kind of that area. It's just so like I said, borderline southwest, west, and northwest, just off Sarcee Trail. So kind of practically just like behind COP, if you can imagine where COP is in the neighborhoods that are kind of just behind there. That was the area of the accident. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And now, so would you say, like, was there any significant life changes? Like, how has this affected you, like, at the core? Like, how would you say it's been? Let's start from how eager were you to get on the roof? I know you had some like hesitation with. At first, you were like gung ho, get on the roof, and I know you had some hesitation to get after that, and then now you want to get on the roof again. So what? So can you just kind of walk me through that? What was that like, and what other implications this had on your life?
Well, there's obviously quite a lot that could go into answering that question. I suppose 2 or 3 weeks into my hospital stay, I realized that I was as able physically as I was before the accident. I realized that with the injuries to my torso and to my skull and everything else and how the recovery would go, it wouldn't limit my mobility. So I knew that I would be able physically to return to the position that I was in before. And as you said, I obviously did have some apprehension towards getting involved with the company in the same way that I was before. But the lifestyle that I had created for myself reflected my financial comfortability.
Mm-hmm.
And for me to kind of move into a different stream, for me to just provide different services for the company would reflect my income or affect my income to an extent. So I realized, well, I am able to continue to do what I was doing before. And I guess all I really had to overcome was, I guess, the PTSD of returning to that same sort of work, I guess, working at heights. And I mean, it obviously had a profound effect in quite a few ways. They're difficult for me to run through just from top down, but I mean, it was easy for me to return to the position I was in because that was the best opportunity career-wise that I had. The best opportunity financially. It was the best opportunity for me to build the lifestyle I wanted, to continue to do what I was doing before. So that was something I had to get out of the way right away. And I worked in that similar position, not on the re-roofing crew, but doing service calls for 8 or 9 months since the accident. But then I started to have other questions about other potential areas of work for myself within the company. And, you know, I was back and forth with it. I wasn't 100% sure after working another season practically in roofing, you know, what I wanted to do. But after all of that deliberation, I had realized that sticking with what I was doing would provide me with the kind of lifestyle that I had before, the lifestyle that I wanted to maintain. So I did that.
So, I mean, I imagine that you're going to be a lot more safety conscious now, and I know that I've, you know, I know I'm basically delegating you as our, you know, being, I mean, a big part of safety in the company
guy
now.
Yeah.
I think it's appropriate because you have, you know, I guess a degree of trauma that is justified. You have a story to tell, and you can tell people, hey, you know, like, what are you doing? You know, put your rope on, kind of thing. You know, you don't want to have that happen. What happened to me happened to you, kind of thing. But I know that you had a fair bit of anxiety starting off. So I mean, like, so to me, it sounds like, you know, first off, you realized you're capable, but your feelings hadn't quite caught up with you yet. And then you started working, and then you're like, definitely more sticky about not working alone. You definitely wanted to have somebody with you on site, which is totally understandable.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, close calls are common. I mean, not extremely close, but there's moments of, like, you know, like you'd be climbing down a ladder, a fixed ladder that's sturdy, and your foot might slip on a rung, right? And you get that little whoa, you know,
Yeah.
and that would just kind of re-trigger the whole PTSD thing. Or like that, or I would say finished a job, descending the ladder. This is the ladder guard is down. The ladder is essentially just freely leaning against the gutter. Obviously, I need to take the ladder down. Big gust of wind comes in, and my ladder shifts like 3 feet along the gutter, almost potentially blowing right over. And I'm halfway up the ladder, and this was on a 2-story job. So things like that start to happen, and you start to realize, like, you know, you're not invincible, and potential for accidents to happen is always there.
So,
and I was working by myself on that job, and that's when I kind of started to realize that I definitely cannot be in a situation where if another accident did happen, someone needed to know. I couldn't just be laying there for God knows how long.
God knows how long, exactly. You know, I know a guy who fell off a roof, actually a good friend of mine, and he slid off of a garage, and he landed on the concrete below. Both legs broke, and he fell, and he was like laying on the ground, and he was commando crawling basically with broken legs, like insane, like just like I couldn't imagine what it's like, and goes to the door of the homeowner and starts knocking on the door, like banging frantically, and nobody was home. And then he crawled to the neighbor's house and started banging on the door there. I mean, you got to go up steps, you got to do all these things. And I think he was in a lot of shock too, but he starts banging on their door and nobody was home. And then he remembered after all this that he had his cell phone in his pocket, and he was able to call in. Actually, he called his wife first, which is kind of, interesting.
Romantic.
But, yeah, you call. I don't know about that. I mean, obviously it's a good idea to call, but I would call the ambulance first and then the wife.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, it was quite a recovery for him. But if he was, being alone, man, that's you get hurt. You got to make sure you have a good way of contacting somebody, and that's why we like to do the call in every 3 hours if you're working alone. Try our best anyway to meet that. I mean, even if you're sitting for 3 hours, man, that's quite a wait.
Yeah, no, that would be a long wait regardless. So, yeah, keeping in constant contact with the crew, regardless of where you are, is definitely a safe, an important safety protocol to follow for sure.
Right, and so I know that you guys, you and Carly, there, were just getting to know each other during this whole thing. So Carly, what was how long did you know Brody before this accident, and exactly what happened? Would you say?
We knew each other for just over 2 weeks. I think it was almost 2.5 weeks. Almost 2.5 weeks. Is that good? What happened was I just ended up realizing that he needed help during his accident, which is actually what I guess encouraged us to make it work. Because if he had just fallen off the roof and that wasn't a thing I thought of, we probably would not have happened, since we'd only known each other for such a short amount of time.
So I think you were saying that so you were there quite a bit. I think you were there more than anybody, and I think you were saying something about the doctor was saying that it would be good to have somebody there for some reason.
Yeah, night one I got there and everyone was leaving, and the nurse was like, somebody needs to stay in case he wakes up, he'll be terrified, and everyone was leaving. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to be the one to stay, which is good because he did wake up at one point in the night and he was terrified, but as soon as he saw me, he gave me like the flirtiest hey like ever. Like noticed me, he's like, oh, hey, and then blacked out again for 24 hours. But I guess it was good that he did have someone there. And then I ended up spontaneously quitting 2 jobs and took 2 weeks off work to stay there for 2 weeks straight. And then I just kept coming. I was there for a month and 8 days in the end. It was good.
Wow, that sounds exhausting a bit too. So you must have known he was a keeper. That must have been something.
Exhausting having to put up with all my banter and my
While you're flirting with the nurses.
brain dead. Yeah, the hardest part was I obviously was head over heels for Carly before the accident had happened, even just in those 2 weeks that we knew each other. But obviously sustaining a brain injury like that kind of was less, it was more of like long-term, I don't know how to put it, but like the 2 weeks we only knew each other before that accident was less significant, was like not really in the front of my mind after that accident happened, like right in the bat, because like
forgot a lot of it though.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah.
I'd known you just a couple weeks before that, and then I saw you maybe less as like a significant other in the hospital with me, like in those moments, because I guess it was so fresh and we hadn't like formed like the strongest bond ever before that. We did. We
You were the
totally
one calling me like pet names and stuff, and I was the one terrified, like, oh, he's calling me babe on day 3.
Day three.
But I think as soon as I told you that we were more like, I think you asked me a question, which I won't say, but just a question like, oh, how close are we, I guess? And I was like, oh, we're pretty close. And as soon as you realized we were closer than you thought, you dropped the whole act about, oh, which nurse should I talk to? Or
Oh, you mean like reminding me that we were dating? Like,
well, you
because
basically
I
asked
forgot?
me, you're like, oh, like, are we close like that? And I was like, yes. You're like, oh, okay. And immediately you're like, stopped being a 14-year-old boy.
Yeah, I understand.
Well, yeah, some the marbles been kind of knocked out, and that's kind of a interesting effect of I guess a concussion or an extreme concussion. So Brody, for you is like, you were like, I know you were pretty wowed by this whole situation, that you had this like lovely lady looking after you this whole time and everything, and I think things kind of sped up after that, and so then I believe you asked her to marry you not too long ago.
Yeah, that was Christmas Day this year, December 25th, 2020. I thought a lot about it. Obviously, I weighed in all the experiences we had together, but obviously her spending the amount of time she did with me in the hospital, having only known me for 2 weeks like that, really showed this selflessness about her that I was obviously extremely attracted to. And I realized if she's there for me through that, she could be there for me through anything. And I thought, I got to lock this girl down. And so I did. And she said yes. And we're engaged. And the rest is history. So, yeah, I'm just trucking forward like that.
Well, that's pretty cool, man. I mean, there's a silver lining to it all, and I'm really glad that you've made a full recovery, and you're going to try to brave that roof again. I was honestly blown away that you were able to get on the roof so soon. When I knew that happened, I was like, I was thinking. Then people are asking, "Is you going to keep roofing or whatever?" I'm like, I mean, I probably wouldn't. I mean, I would be like, it takes a lot of fortitude and a lot of, I guess, passion for the industry to get back out there and back on the horse, so to speak.
Yeah, there was quite a few different factors that motivated my return. I obviously went over the financial implications of that, best opportunity I had, and if I was able to continue doing it, I better keep doing it. There are other perks though to things as well. I mean, like with the ability for me to just kind of have a headphone in while I'm working, educate myself in the things that I saw fit, and just it like in a way gave me free time that I didn't have outside of work, like sitting down and watching a 4-hour long documentary on World War II or something like that. But when I can just have a headphone in and I'm listening to that while I'm working, that was just, it was valuable to me, and that was something I definitely didn't want to let go of.
Right.
So that to an extent motivated my
Awesome.
My desire to stay working the way I was. Yeah.
I noticed that your want for self perseverance really increased, and I know you were for a little while there even worried about driving around in traffic because of how dangerous it is out there. So would you say that that's kind of subsided, or was that kind of a temporary thing?
Well, I mean, I can't avoid the necessity, of driving. I guess it's not something I can avoid. Sure, I was like apprehensive for a little while, but no, I feel the same about driving the way as I did before. It didn't really change. I just was obviously just shook up from the accident, and then it faded, and life kind of returned to normal after some time. So.
Yeah. Well. I mean, yeah, I know you had that apprehension, so that's good to hear that that's kind of subsided. And I know technology helped you out quite a bit there. I know we had put together a fundraiser for you, and I know I didn't receive any of the cash, but I know I was thankful for the people that helped you out in that time. So what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so that's kind of a multifaceted topic to an extent. I was a part of a band when the accident happened. Nolan, who works with us, my buddy Jake went, and another close buddy, Skylar Mills. It's worth pointing out that Skylar, out of everyone besides Carly anyways, was able to spend a significant amount of time in the hospital with me after the accident first happened. Carly was tied up with a lot of different work. Everyone else was busy. I can't remember exactly. I think he might have been in school at the time. I have a hard time remembering now. Yeah, he was in school at the time, but Skylar stepped up and he spent a lot of time in that hospital with me in the beginning, because obviously the fear of being, well, I can't remember myself personally, but the fear of me being there by myself, I mean, the nurses expressed the importance of having somebody there as well. So Skylar was there. He was there every day for quite a while, and he was there obviously just kind of helping me to feel normal to an extent, he was bringing different kind of gifts, coloring books, and just stuff for me and him to do.
Oh, yeah.
We were talking about music, listening to music.
Coloring books, like what were you coloring?
Oh, I can't remember now.
I used them, you didn't.
Yeah, well.
When you were sleeping, I would use them.
Yeah, well, at least somebody used them. I know I use them I'm pretty sure me and him were messing around that a little bit, but there's gifts from a bunch of different people, but me and him would talk about the tour that the band had just gotten back from, just like I think mid-September or so. When we got back, we did a tour just around the United States and back up. And the final show of that tour, or wait, no, that wasn't the final show of the tour. I'm getting my dates mixed up a little bit. But regardless, me and him had that to talk about, and he was there, obviously creating some normalcy in my life while nobody else was really available at the time. Anyways, but I'm just kind of going into that, just to kind of explain the whole fundraiser thing that you were talking about. So Skylar and the guys put together the Blazing Fundraiser, I believe what it was called. And yeah, so they had advertised my accident. They had made a post about it online, about what I was going through, and essentially asked people to help out, donate what they could just to help with the recovery process. So they put that together, and all said and done, I think in the end, it was just over $5,000. I think at the heavy metal community primarily. I mean, a lot of other people donated, but I mean, without the kind of reputation the band had, or the friends and family we had within that scene, and just in general, I mean, people banded together to raise some money to help my recovery process, and they did. And I have Skylar to thank for that, and the band, and everybody who donated, obviously. I have to thank for that as well. So
too many names to mention, though. You got a lot of help. You have quite a community there.
I still have a list. I tried to. I want to thank everybody in person. I mean, to the best of my ability, anyways. But COVID hit too in the middle of all that, so all the shows got shut down, and my ability to go out and just thank people one-on-one was limited. But I obviously had every intention to thank everybody as thoughtfully and as wholeheartedly as possible, because obviously financial stress goes along with an accident like that, and they really made things a lot easier for me. I talked about purchasing a good mattress for myself, and the community that supported me and the band helped with that. So yeah, that was a godsend for sure, to have people band together like that to help me out. It's not something you really notice, how much people really care about you or care about each other in that kind of community, until people are really given a reason to band together, to show their support. Obviously, having people show up to the show, watch us perform, buy our merchandise and stuff like that, hang out with us, talk with us, is great, but it's hard to get a sense of how really tight-knit the group is, or how caring and how family-oriented heavy metal community in Calgary anyways was, until something like that happened, and until you're in the center of it, like I was.
So there's kind of a bunch of silver linings that happened and kind of brought you and Carly closer together, and it actually kind of showed you who your friends were at the end of the day.
Yeah, it definitely did. You know what I mean? To have everyone show up like that. I even had friends from BC who I grew up with came out with their significant others to be with me in the hospital, for days. That was really significant too. I know people that I hadn't seen in quite a while since I moved away, but the fact that they came to see me and to meet Carly as well, because they knew a lot about her. I couldn't shut up about Carly, but to come and meet her, and to come and just kind of be there for me through that kind of experience was very significant for sure. So,
that's pretty touching. I mean, I kind of got to watch it all, and I was really, in a way, a bit envious, to see that you have such a good, a good network, because not everybody has that kind of thing going on for them, or have that kind of, blessed network. Now, I think everyone's wondering, did you see anything in your time? Do you remember anything like, maybe a supernatural experience while you were totally out?
The good old NDE, near-death experience. Yeah. I had actually studied NDEs, not extensively, but I'd listened to quite a few podcasts and listened to interviews and documentaries about near-death experiences too, because I've always been fascinated by that. And honestly, no, throughout those 6 days, I don't recall any sort of supernatural happening, or any sort of spiritual awakening, we could say, I guess. I mean, because some of the atypical near-death experience traits, I mean, one of which is like an out-of-body experience. Another is just people have, or they're able to recollect meeting this entity, or you can see the light and people go into the light and they have these other kind of dreamlike experiences, but I never had anything like that. And so, I mean, I don't think it was as near death as it could have been, obviously, because I think those experiences you have to be a lot closer to the edge before your brain goes through the kind of chemical process it would before death. Like, obviously, yeah, I don't really have any significant memories from that time period, but from what I learned as well, luckily I was severely concussed, and I had a lot of brain trauma that potentially required physical intervention, but I luckily dodged that bullet. But I do remember some dreams from the hospital, but not from that time period. It was kind of like being blackout drunk for 6 days. I just no recollection whatsoever.
Well, I think I remember you were actually at some point in time thought you were at a show. You thought you were performing at a show. I remember that much when you were there. You were
Really?
Like, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
You were like,
Okay.
it was like as if you were on stage or something like that. And you said thanking everyone for coming out, kind of thing. And yeah, that was kind of interesting there. So, okay. Well, would you say you have any like tips or anything for anybody that has gone through a traumatic experience like this for recovery?
A traumatic experience and recovery. Well, I mean, I think the most significant for me was just kind of just appreciating the life you had, even, I mean, regardless of how crappy it was beforehand. I mean, just being thankful for what you had before the accident and the fact that you can still enjoy the fact that you're able to enjoy it as well as you're able to post-traumatic accident like that. I mean, the fact that I was able to return to my job created, this sense of just relief within me. Obviously, that really helped the recovery. Meeting a beautiful woman like Carly just 2 weeks before that accident and waking up to realize that she was there and she wanted to be there and she stayed there for so long, that obviously had a huge impact on me as well, because it gave me a reason to kind of reinvigorate my optimism, just I guess for this scenario that I was in. I guess like I just knew that I was on a long road to recovery and there wasn't a lot I was going to be able to do, but just having someone there for me like the way she was definitely just gave me this sense of relief again. Like I guess relief is like the key word.
So sounds like to me like so for anybody who's been through this, they should be, make sure they have a good conversation with them of thankfulness, trying to be thankful and keep their spirits up, and then also connect with people that they and value those connections.
I was like extremely thankful for my friends whom I've mentioned for spending the time there that they did. I mean, my mother and my sister as well came down. My dad unfortunately wasn't able to join them, but my mom and my sister came. I think they were here for about a week or so. That had a huge impact on me as well. Just having my immediate family there throughout that experience is obviously significant. But just being thankful for everyone that was there and being thankful for the life that I still had, I suppose, regardless of, I mean, whatever tribulations I had faced before the accident or whatever scenarios that I wasn't fond of. I mean, just to wake up and realize I was still here, I was still mobile, I was still able to behave and think and work or process things the way I was before. It was a sense of relief and really made me extremely thankful for what I had had.
Excellent.
So, I mean, yeah, that was, moral of the story is when you almost lose something like that, I mean, my ability to walk maybe, or lose this potentially amazing relationship that I was working on. I mean, when you wake up and you still have it, you're just extremely thankful, and you really just work towards maintaining those relationships with everybody, and it just helps you to really become a better person. Definitely.
So life-changing, to say the least.
Yeah, it definitely was.
Well, I think we should wrap this up here, and thanks to everybody who's tuned in and joined in, and if you have any questions, you can leave a comment below. And we also have just recently started up a TikTok. So if you'd like to join us for that, help us grow our following there. Our content there is unique from other stuff. We're also trying to get our YouTube channel going here. So if you could subscribe there and hit that notification bell, that would be amazing. And that's all we have to say for today.
Yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks for being here, Carly, too. It was significant. You had a lot of insight. She was there for a lot of
So many stories, but not enough time to tell them all.
Yeah, not enough time to tell it, and she remembers more of the whole experience than I do. But
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll have to have a part 2.
Maybe a part 2, indeed. Okay, well, everybody, thank you for watching. It was a cool experience. Thanks, Mike, too, for mediating the whole thing, and it was fun talking.
Absolutely.